It's actually quite easy to get lost in 3D space in After Effects, so what I usually tend to do is to create a layer, and I call it something like floor, and then I tilt it away from me on the x-axis, and then I use that as the floor, meaning that everything else I create goes above that layer. So let's do that now. So I'm just going to go and rename this floor, and I'll press R to open up rotation, and because I'm not going to be animating this, I can change the orientation, so I can set this to be 90 degrees. And as soon as we do that, you'll see now that the layer has disappeared. You'll only see this thin line here. This isn't the layer itself actually, these aren't the pixels of the layer, these are just the control points. And if I click outside, you see they'll get even thinner, but this red line is going to stay here. It's not actually going to be there when you render, but for now it's going to stay here, just telling you that there's a layer there. Now if this is annoying you and you want to turn this off, on the keyboard you can press Ctrl or Command on the Mac, and then Shift and H, Ctrl Shift H or Command Shift H, that will make that outline disappear. So this is the shortcut to make pretty much every outline disappear, including things like effect controls, the layer controls, masks and so on. So Command Shift H will make that disappear. For now, I do want that back. I'm going to go press Command Shift H again, so that comes back on. And it looks like the layer has disappeared, but it hasn't. In After Effects, what happens when you convert a layer into a 3D layer is that the layer actually stays as the 2D layer as it was before, but it now is living inside a 3D space, meaning I could place it in different places in 3D. But the layer itself is still a 2D layer. This is why After Effects is sometimes called 2.5D and not quite 3D. Although with the recent updates you can create some actual 3D objects, but primarily the objects or the layers that you have are all 2D layers inside a 3D space, hence the term 2.5D. Now let's have a look at this from a different angle. So instead of seeing this from the front, which is the active camera, this is what it tells me here, we are now seeing this from the active camera. Instead of seeing this from the active camera, I'm going to go and change this view from active camera to, let's say, top. And lo and behold, the layer is back. Now the layer is back because I'm now looking at the same scene from above. If I look at it from the active camera, which in this case is the same as the front view, it's gone. But if I look at it from the top, it's back. If I look at it from the side, let's say the right side, it's there. It's smaller, but it's there. Let me now tweak the orientation so you can see what's happening. This is what's happening to the layer there. And if I look at it from the top and then tweak it, you see that's what's happening there. It looks like the layer is actually scaling. It's not actually scaling. What's happening is that its flat side is becoming perpendicular to our view. So let me now go back to my active camera and I'll set this back to 90. If I now push this layer down, so it's not in the dead center, if I push it on the Z, you'll see now we can see the contents of the layer because we are no longer looking at it from a flat angle. So I'm going to press Command Z to take that back. Together with these views, the active camera, top, left, bottom and so on, these are all called orthographic views by the way. Together with your orthographic views, you have some custom views as well. So with the custom views, you can change where you are in space. Let's have a look at how that's done. If I go to Custom View 1, this takes us up and left and it points us down in space. So if I just go to the active camera, you see that we're looking at the scene head on. And if you imagine, you lift yourself up and towards the left, but face down, this is what custom camera does. It lifts us up towards left and it faces down. Custom View 2 is just lifting us up in space and then looking down. And Custom View 3 is lifting us up and towards right and making us look down. As long as you're inside one of these views, the custom views, you can use your camera tools and then manually change where you are in space. The camera tools are up here, so if I click and hold it down, you'll see we have 4 different tools here. The first tool, the Unified Camera tool, is actually a combination of these 3 tools. So instead of using them one by one, you could use the Unified Camera tool and it does the same thing with some different clicks on the mouse. So with the Unified Camera tool, if you left click and drag, that's the same thing as Orbit Camera tool. If you right click and drag, that's the same thing as Track Z Camera tool. And if you middle click and drag, that's the same thing as Track X and Y Camera tool. Now for the purpose of this lesson, I'll assume that you don't have a 3-button mouse, so I'll use these tools instead, but just know that you can use the Unified Camera tool just as easily, it just saves a lot of time. What this Orbit Camera tool does is it lets you, if you select that and then move your cursor down, it lets you move around in space. So I can click and drag and let go, click and drag and let go. You see I'm moving around in space. So this is a really easy way to see the scene from different angles. The third tool here, the Track X and Y Camera tool, just moves you up, down, left and right in space. It doesn't get closer to the object or it doesn't change your angle. It just literally moves you up or down, left or right. It seems like the layer is moving up and down, but it isn't. The layer stays where it is. We are moving up and down. So if I click and drag this down, we are actually going up. If I click and drag up, we're going down. Dragging left will make us go towards right. Dragging right will make us go towards left. The final tool here, Track Z Camera tool, is going to push us in or out depending on which direction you drag your mouse. So if I click and drag towards right, we go in. Drag it towards left, we go out. And all the while this is happening to us. We are changing our position, but not the layers. We are moving in 3D space, not the layers. So that's something to keep in mind when you're working in the third dimension in After Effects.